when I agreed to do this presentation, I had some thoughts on how I was going to present gates and all the different types of gates that we have in the Tulsa district. And so this is going to be a little bit more of a TED Talk, maybe on a general overlook on infrastructure and gates and the hydraulic structures we use to control our dams. But my sister likes to send me these pictures all the time because I am a dam engineer. So if you can't read that, it says the humble beaver pauses to reflect on the infinite mysteries of life. We're going to dam it all. Well, that's what the Corps did. So the Tulsa district, we're one of 4 districts within Southwest Division. We're the yellow in the middle. Most of us, I believe, are from the area. But we're one of 8 divisions. And while some districts within our own division and within the Corps as a whole have narrower scope and projects that they look at as reference would be like Galveston, where they have a primary job of dredging the port. Tulsa district's a 50-50 district. So we're about half military construction, about half civil works. And here we are. And to do this type of work, we use a lot of other resources outside the district. We have engineering, research, and development centers. The ERDIC, our lab, a lot of people are familiar with the one in Vicksburg where they're headquartered, but there's also a cold regions lab up in New Hampshire. There's the geotechnical and structures in Alexandria, Vicksburg has the coastal lab, environmental and geotechnical structures. Alexandria, Virginia has our geospatial. Champaign, Illinois is our construction and engineering. And as I said, Hanover is our cold weather research. In addition to these, we have some mandatory centers of expertise that we use, and the 3 that work most closely with infrastructure and civil works are the 3 ones I've highlighted, being from left to right, the Hydropower Design Center in Portland, Oregon. The middle one is the Inland Navigation Design Center, and the one on the far right is Huntington's Center of Expertise for Dam Safety. In addition to those, we have Institutes for Water Resources, and the biggest one that we use is the RMC, the Risk Management Center in Boulder, Colorado. Additionally, there are numerous other centers of expertise. There's 47 total throughout the Corps. So each district and some of the labs have specialties that we reach out to from the district level to help support our work. Looking at Tulsa itself, as Mr. Kirk had pointed out, we have 38 lakes. There's the light blue are shown in Oklahoma. The stars represent our 8 power plants, and we show the Air Force installations and the Army bases that we support. Does anyone in here, you work with the Corps, you're not allowed to answer, know how old Tulsa District is? No. We're just over 75 years old. We were formed and established in 1939. Our oldest project is Great Salt Plains all the way up here. Oh, it's more flat. Great Salt Plains.
A little bit to the right.
A little right over here. There we go. It's hard to read up there. But so out of these 38 projects, we have numerous gates and shoreline and levees and dams that we work with. And to do this, we're broken up into a couple different divisions that I'm going to talk about today. Our operations division, which Mr. Bell is on this chart, but operations division has 361 personnel, staff, and this summer they bring on another 60 rangers. That is not very many people to oversee the amount of land and the amount of projects that we have for the daily operations and maintenance. Those are broken into national resources and recreation, technical, the Kansas area, northern area, Eufaula, Worcester, Fort Gibson, Tin Killer, and Red River. The technical support branch, which Mr. Bell is the representative, underneath him we have civil maintenance and engineering section, navigation, and hydropower. Supporting them on the engineering and construction side are the 6 area and branch offices shown. The 3 on the left are our construction area offices. One's located here in Tulsa. The other 2 are in Central Oklahoma area offices out of Tinker and Fort Sill and Lawton. Each of those not only oversees our military construction projects within the Central and Fort Sill office, but they also oversee some of our civil works projects. The construction branch is next. They oversee some of the daily construction management within the Tulsa district. And engineering branch, where I work, has civil design, military, engineering support, and infrastructure sections. Engineering branch for the district as a whole, we're only about 60 people. H&H branch, who supports us with our hydraulics, they're like another 35. So we're looking at the last 2 being right around 100 people who are supporting the engineering side for the daily operations. What I'm going to talk about is with civil works and infrastructure is our dam safety program, our levee safety, our bridge safety, and all of our annual inspections for each of these falls under that infrastructure section. Those are the personnel who go out and do the inspections. We're mandated to do our periodic inspections and our periodic assessments of our projects. What these means is every 5 years we go out and we do a really in-depth look at our structures, and we look at the gates and we document the conditions that they're in. And from those documents we then determine what repairs or replacements or rehabilitations need to take place. We then fall into like a 2-year budget cycle. So once we've got that information, we put it in, we do our request, and we're always 2 years out from knowing what repairs we're going to be working on. That can be very difficult when emergencies happen. The floods that we had over the past year, before that the droughts. So the work that we do is both complicated and difficult to manage on a daily basis, as you can imagine. The civil works section, where I'm based out of, we handle all the design for the O&M and the major maintenance, generally with assistance and guidelines from other MCXs, mandatory centers like the Dam Safety Production Center, Hydropower Design Center, or the Inland Navigation Center. Our district's hydraulic steel structures program is also overseen in this section. That's what I represent. I'm the hydraulic steel structures engineer for Tulsa District. You can see in this picture at the bottom, this is Levy Falla, and this is under construction. It was very easy to go out and make tweaks and adjust the gates when the lake has yet to be filled. We're looking at a critical lift, placing the container gate in the middle. They took time and took great care in building our structures. We try and take equal amount of care and time in maintaining and operating these structures. But it can be very difficult. Now we've got more gates. When we talk about hydraulic steel structures and gates, what we really mean are container gates, miter gates, sluice gates, service gates, intake gates, stop blocks, bulkheads, and all the associated lifting devices that are required to operate those. Mr. Keepline just showed you an interesting adaptation of an intake structure to bring in the water to the structure itself. And once it hits those gates, that's where our group takes over and where we look at that. And you can see some of the gate types are shown here in this picture in blue. Until 2014, how we designed, operated, maintained, and repaired those gates was pretty straightforward. We've been developing these since the 30s and the documents that we had for that hadn't really changed a whole lot up into the 80s and 90s. They were still pretty much, it was allowable stress design. The type of engineering was pretty similar to what you would find in industrial design and some building designs. That all changed in June of 2014. In June of 2014, we released a new engineering technical letter for hydraulic steel design. And with that, a whole host of other requirements. And those requirements are based out of, for each of you who work for AV contractors or construction contractors, you should be familiar with some of these. But there's a ER, which is our engineering regulation for how we operate and what we're required to do for design and civil works projects, was a 1999 document. The ER for hydraulic steel structures and how we maintain those is the next one down. It's a 2009 document. The EM 6054, that's the engineering manual. Our engineering manuals tell us if the ERs are rules and regulations and our laws of how we do our work. The engineering manuals are mapped to how we do that work. It's our code that we follow. So we have the inspection, evaluation, repair of steel structures, and then we have the ETL, the design of hydraulic steel structures. Before this, each type of gate had its own manual and its own guidelines. With the release of this document, they were all bundled into one. For those of you that are engineers in the audience, you know what codes have done over the last dozen years or so. I mean, we went from concrete manuals that were a half inch thick to inch and a half thick. The IBC is now 2.5 inches thick. The UBC, the BOCA, were all much smaller, much easier to use. As we adapt and as new technology comes on board and we do more research, our codes and our guidelines that we follow are getting more and more complex. And that's just not in the public sector, it's also, or in the private sector, it's also in the public sector as well. All the documentations that when you hear or when you see a solicitation or you see our contracts, and you see these references, I encourage you to go online and download them and read them. All of our publications are free, and they can all be found at this website at www.publications.usace.army.mil. So that was a little bit of a longer intro that I wanted to get to. Let's talk about civil works, infrastructure, and the challenges we have for our gates and our projects. Our district's 75 years old. Our projects are beginning to show some age, and larger and more complex components are needing to be replaced. To date, the Tulsa district has yet to replace a full painter gate. We've done repairs of arms on the gates, we've done weld repair, we've painted, we've replaced mechanical components, but we've yet to replace a full painter gate or a full miter gate. That day is coming. What we've seen over the last 5 years is we began replacing the gates like Mr. Keithline showed, some of the slide gates. We've replaced vertical lift gates, and we'll show some of the projects shortly. Our large inventory. Right now we have 38 lake projects. We have around 2,000 components of HSS. I wonder if some of the commanders, the former commanders that are here, realize that we have 1,500 buildings, and we have 48 bridges currently that we are aware of. There are more bridges based on the classification of a bridge span that we are adding to our inventory yearly. So each of these type of projects that we replace, that we work on, as they discussed earlier, our budget is staying kind of flat, growing a little bit, but generally staying flat. The age of our structures is increasing yearly. It is a challenge, and it is one I actually enjoy, and I hope that those of you who are here that are engineers enjoy as well. Some of the conditions that we can't control are environmental cycles, the droughts, the floods, the seismic activity, whether it's tectonic or whether it's induced seismicity that we've seen in Oklahoma and Kansas over the last 4 or 5 years. Some of the issues that we have that are challenging are resourcing components. Cast steel, semi-cast, bronze alloys, in our oldest project, 1941 to 1970, being able to cast a large forging was still possible in the U.S. Now it's very difficult. The number of large companies that do these type of forgings, they don't exist here. Some of the steels that we use are if you look at our as-builts, when you look at our older projects, have been replaced 3, 4, 5 times and are no longer available. Design standards, as I said, both USACE and other codes are rapidly changing. Staying up to date on these is imperative for all of us. Changing contract requirements, our ability for acquisition strategies is ever-changing. Using MATOCs, multiple awards, or using a SATOC, a single award task order, or sole sourcing. The requirements that we are under for acquisition, because as part of USACE we are under the Department of Defense and the Army, are different than, say, Bureau of Reclamation. And so those nuances are challenges that we have to embrace and work within. What we are doing, and the two on this previous slide that are red that I will go into a little bit on, are inventories and how are we tracking these. The Tulsa District has recently partnered with Walla Walla District to take all of our HSS inventory and put it on one master database. From this database, you will be able to see on the left. On the left, we have our individual ID for each of the components. Each gate has its own ID. The description of the gate. This is Copan in Kansas. It has its ID. Copan stop log 1. Last time it was inspected was in 2011. The next time it's in 2015. It's in service. If we go down to any that need work, Tanner Gate 1 at Copan. Its deficiencies, it's paint right now. It needs to be blast, repair corrosion, and repaint with the system. So we're taking all this data and we're loading it into one central location with the as-built so that we have a very condensed tool to be able to look at where we are with our projects. You can run queries on this. So I can look at all Tanner gates that are deficient. I can look at all Tanner gates that need painted. I can look at them by size. It's a very useful system that we're just now bringing online. Some of the metrics that you can bring up, and this is the one I brought up this morning. Right now we have, out of those 2,000 pieces, we have about 524 of them loaded. 2 of them have been removed from service because they're not suitable right now. One of them has limited service. 268 have been inspected. Fracture critical members are a component of the gate or structure that would cause it to fail if that single piece failed. We have 244 of those known. There's 279 that need additional information put in. So this is where we're going with our, how are we going to track and manage our database and our infrastructure. What we're going to see shortly is this system is going to be adopted by USACE as a whole. USACE is working on a master system for all the districts. Right now, Northwest Division, where Walla Walla is located, has their divisions, districts, to some extent all uploaded. They're one of the first districts outside uploading our information, and there's other districts online now. Hopefully we'll see this system brought online within the next few years for USACE as a whole. Design standards. As I mentioned earlier, the design standards previous to the 2014 allowed a 2D approach. Now we're doing 3D on all of our designs. We're seeing the implementation of BIM brought into Civil Works. We have 2,000 gates to model. That's a lot of model. There's a lot of data capacity. But what we've developed since as I mentioned earlier, we're a small, engineering is a small component of the district as a whole. There's only about 15 of us in civil design. To learn these kind of high-end modeling techniques, what USACE has done is they've developed a super users group. So we've taken the modelers who do this across the Corps from all districts and made a central users group that oversee the gates, and we're able to tap into them for doing models like these Tanner gates shown here. These combined with the database I showed earlier is going to give us a much better starting point for tracking trends and maintaining our current infrastructure. So, I want to ask you some questions earlier, see if you're paying attention. I'm curious to know, the yellow star is still us. We have these new gates that I talked about being built all over the country. Can anyone guess where the closest fabricator that's built a gate for Tulsa is?
Northeast.
Pittsburgh? Got a Pittsburgh? Anybody else? China? No China yet. Oregon? All right. The closest is actually OCCI, Missouri fabricators out of Fulton, Missouri. They built, I think, 8 or so stop logs, as well as the John Redmond floating bulkhead. They're 340 miles away. The next closest is Johnson Machine Works in Chariton, Iowa, at 440 miles. So the two closest are within 500 miles. That's reasonable for the type of structures we're looking at. They're complex, they're hard to build. How far away do you think is the next closest? 1,000. You got 1,000? You're under. The next closest is all the way up in Buffalo, New York, at Oneida, at 316 miles away. I'm sorry, 1,300 miles away. After that is Steel Fab in Pittsburgh, Massachusetts, Selway in Stevensville, Montana, and Oregon Iron Works. How much do you think our steel cost fabricated and installed for these type of gates? Ballpark figure, dollars per pound in place, painted. Anybody? What are bridges? You do bridges, roughly what a bridge costs in Oklahoma? $2. $2 a pound installed?
Yeah.
Okay. $2?
$10.
Yeah, we're $10, $15 a pound. And our structures aren't light. What did you say the training gate that you looked at was? 110,000 pounds for one gate. Some of the bulkheads I worked on, that are floating bulkheads, they're more like 95 tons. So we need to do something where we're not having to go this far to build our structures. That's something that needs to be tackled soon.
Do you barge it in or over the
Rail, road. A lot of them are brought in by road parts. In the Northwest, they do a lot of barge placement. They'll bring them in on barge. Some examples of some of our recent projects. I'll go through these projects fairly quickly. This is August, Weber's Falls. What I want you to look at real quick is the gates. You see how many levels there are? There's, Robert, how many levels were there? 18 sections. Two wider gates. This is the downstream side. This is the condition that they were in prior to our recent repairs. All the little red dots on girders 7, 8, and 9 look like those pictures in the corners. We have major section loss, we have corrosion, we have full members that need to be replaced. Johnny, how long can I take one of the miter gates out of service on the river. Can't. We,
30 days. It's 3 weeks.
3 weeks, 21 days. We're single chamber locks. He's right. 21 days is what we can take one out and do maintenance. Those are 3 out of 18 on one gate. We bring in crews from all over. We work through the night, 12-hour shifts, double shifts, and we do what we can. And we do a good job, but this is one gate out of 5 on a system that's got a pair of gates, one upstream, one downstream, on a system that's got 18 locks. You can see where this escalates in cost and time. Container gates. Fort Gibson has 30 container gates. This is just one of them. And the red circle is one of the vertical struts. And if you look at the picture on the bottom right, I can put my fist on it. That had to get cut out and replaced. That's just one type of one flaw that we find on our container gates. Does anybody here, and I don't know if I said it already, how many container gates we have in the Tulsa district?
228.
Close, 278. We have more container gates than any other district in the Corps. And our next closest one is right under us at Little Rock, who's one of our sister districts. Most districts have, and 100 would be a large number. 50 is more reasonable for most districts. We have vertical slide gates. This is Sardis. This is a fixed wheel gate, and this is the last project that I'll show an example of. And I'm showing this last because if you remember my first project I showed was the fall and putting in the container gate. They were able to do it in the dry. They were able to make tweaks and machine it and fit it as needed. We have to replace these in service in a built conduit with frames that are cast into the concrete to support the structure and make another ceiling surface. Machining these to match the old is very difficult. Getting those leaks down, as you saw in the previous presentation, takes time, takes effort. It is difficult when you can only really work on half of the system. You can take the gate out and you can work on the gate. You can bring in a portable milling machine and you can work sometimes on the seals. But these structures are what we see across the board. The 3 that I've shown are a miter gate, a container gate, and a vertical lift gate. The 3 of these, I would say, are typical of our 2,000 structures. As we said earlier, the original design was about 50 years before we had to start doing major replacement, major maintenance. We're now at 75 years on some of our older projects. We're hitting that 50-year mark on the majority of our projects. Current design requires a 100-year life cycle. This is one of those challenges that we're embracing. We're working on with some of you in this room today on some of our projects. John Redmond floating bulkhead. This is the one that I know is about 95 tons, or 93.5 tons. There it is in service. This is one of our most recent floating bulkhead that we built in 2013. These cost somewhere between $3 and $5 million, depending on their size. These structures are difficult to maintain, operate, inspect, and use on a daily basis. But these are all challenges that we should look at and we should, as engineers, tackle. These are what makes our jobs both challenging and rewarding. To close on some good projects, in 2013, we did our first pedal ball replacement on the nav. It's a spherical bearing, and he's placing underneath one of those big miter gates. On the right is at Weber Falls Power Plant, one of the control devices for regulating the volume of water in the unit. I think that's unit 3. I talked about the materials. Some of the blades on some of the components that we have are being manufactured in Brazil, Spain, Italy, not China. But so I showed you the gates that we were building here that are across the U.S. Components for some of our devices come from across oceans. So that being said, question everything and know that my sister